So thanks, Lynn. Any questions before we get started? All right. So we're going to start by getting to know just a little bit about each other's work, about the organizations that you're representing today. We're going to talk about public problems. We're going to define what public problems are. We'll take a break probably about at that point. It would be about an hour in. And then we have 4 exercises to work through in sort of doing some practice working with public problems and root cause analysis. And then we'll talk about sort of where you can take this from here and wrap up. I do expect, I think it's probably is realistic to say that we'll take the full 2 hours today, but if I can get it wrapped up earlier, I will do my best. So, and then just one more reminder for those of you who, if you didn't hear me say before, I did just right around the noon hour, I think I emailed everyone a solving public problems worksheets, and that's an Adobe, like a PDF document. And then there was also a Word document. If you can open the PDF document, that's ideal. That's complete. You don't need to write on it or insert anything into it. It's just a tool for you to follow along with when we get to the exercises. So if anyone didn't get that or can't open it, if you would let us know in the chat, just so I know who has it and who doesn't. So I asked you all when I sent out the reminder this week to show up to today's session with your mission in mind, to sort of revisit your agency's mission. And so what I'd like for everyone to do is think about what community problems your agency mission seeks to address. And so I hope that question makes sense to everyone. I'm sure some of your agencies are addressing multiple problems, some of you fewer problems. But when you think about the mission and the work that you do, I'm just going to ask you to go around and share what community problems does your agency's mission seek to address. And I will, I'll call on folks and we'll go around the room. And so Sharon, would you be willing to start by telling us what organization you represent and then answering the question?
Sure. Hello. I represent CRB, which stands for Communities of Rooted Bryans. It's just been changed. It used to be Coalition of Refugees from Burma. And the mission is to help refugees or newcomers, especially families, to reach their potential in education. So I work with families with children under 5 in preparation for kindergarten or school readiness. I think that's the major thing we do. Of course, we can go around all the needs in the household.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, and so if you were to think about like if is there a particular problem, because of course you said we're helping refugees, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's a problem. Yeah, can you think of, is there a problem in particular that your agency works to solve? Oh, and you didn't answer the question wrong. I'm just pushing you. Sorry, it's okay. No, it's okay.
I think I don't know if that would be right, but I'll think more like the inequality in school system.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I think that, like you said, that's sort of making sure that the up to kindergarten are getting into school. Great. And again, you answered the question just fine. I'm just going to push each of you one to think a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Sophia, and please let me know if I do not pronounce your name correctly.
You got it right. Thank you.
Great.
I work with the Somali Health Board, and our mission is to reduce health disparities in King County Somali community, particularly.
Okay.
I know it's pretty broad, health disparities.
Yeah, but no, that's great. And so obviously your mission is slightly different than Sharon's, in which you are identifying a problem right away, right? That there's health disparities. Great. Thanks, Sophia. Chloe.
Hi, sorry, it's a full house, so there's going to be background noise over here.
Totally okay.
We, Denise Louie works to promote school and life readiness with multicultural early learning services, really focusing on respecting home heritage and language and culture. And so what we're really working to is, I guess, address the opportunity gap through connection to education and family supports, stability, community resources, kind of thing.
Great. Great. Thanks, Chloe. And no problem about having a full house. That's totally all right. I want y'all to be able to participate as best you can. And then Sarab, and again, please tell me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly.
So I work with Voices of Tomorrow, and we connect young children to their culture and their different languages and help them with like cultural disparities.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And then is that everyone today? I'm not missing anyone, am I? Everyone got a chance to share? Okay, so I wanted to start in this place of sort of thinking about what you each do in your agencies. And again, you know, reiterating that point that your agency's mission in and of itself may not identify an actual problem, but certainly as you think about the work that you do, I would imagine that each one of you encounter various things that are problems that sort of prevent you from achieving your mission or prevent you from doing the things that you need to do with your community and clients. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how to sort of define particular types of problems. So let me shift gears here. So our starting place for this conversation today is this idea of public problems. And public problems are complex economic, political, or social problems that have large impacts on communities and people. And they tend to be deeply political with solutions that aren't universally agreed upon. And so when we think about public problems, you know, these are the big deal, complex, complicated, difficult to solve problems that we run into in the work that we're doing, particularly in communities that are partnering with Best Starts for Kids. And so, you know, I was thinking as an idea to sort of give you an example of a public problem. I think each one of you, and I'll ask each one of you to share your idea of a public problem too. But one of the things we're seeing this week in particular, right, is we have these unsatisfied, overworked, underappreciated public school staff and teachers who we're seeing this kind of resulting in a labor shortage this week in particular in Seattle, Bellevue. I think Kent, the public school system is actually sort of in a very short notice shut down the schools an extra day this week. So that's an example of a public problem, right? It has this big impact on a lot of different people. It's complicated. The solutions are deeply political. That's what we're talking about when we think of public problems. And so if you sort of take this definition, and I'll give you a second to reflect on it, I'm gonna come back to each of you and ask you to just give me an example of another public problem. And it can be something that you think of when it comes to your work directly. But it doesn't have to be. It can be something that affects you as a member of a community or in your own life. So take just a couple minutes to sort of collect your thoughts, to look at the definition here. And I'm going to ask you in just a second to give me an example of what you think a public problem is. So thanks, Sophia. I'm gonna take Sophia's cue and tell you when you're ready to go ahead, if it works for you to just type your public problem into the chat. And if you prefer to, if it's easier for you to just say it out loud, go ahead and raise your hand. But whenever you're ready, if you want to, you can type it in or raise your hand and we'll. Sharon, please.
Can I say like the COVID-19?
Yeah, and tell me something a little bit. So absolutely. Like, yes, that is a huge public problem. Can you tell me something a little bit more specific about COVID-19?
Like, for example, the shutdown of school.
Great.
And the decrease in interest for students in school.
Great. I think that's a great example of a public problem. Again, it's complex. It involves, it's in many cases, it really is economic, political, and social, and it has large impacts on people, but it's also very complicated to solve, and how to solve it is not something that people agree on. Yeah. I saw Sophia put the mandates, and so the vaccine, mandate to get vaccines at jobs, is that, Sophia, and to be out in public is
correct.
Yeah.
Because of the economic and social, and at times the political problems that come with the mandate.
Absolutely. And again, this idea of people don't universally agree about sort of how this should go. And as you said, yes, it's been very political and it impacts all of us. Chloe, I see your answer. Quality of school or education dependent on the neighborhood and the district. Super. So that we don't have equality in terms of quality of schools, that it's very much dependent on the wealth in particular neighborhoods based on property taxes, that we have this inequality across school districts. Great example too. Anyone else want to share an example of a public problem?
Racism.
Yeah. Sharon, did you want to add?
I said racism.
Did you say racism? Good, great. Another example of a big, huge public problem that needs to be addressed. Climate change was Lynn's example. And so these are all good examples of these, you're seeing that public problems, oftentimes you'll hear people also talk about like wicked problems. And by wicked problems, it means that they're complex, hard to solve, don't have universally agreed upon solutions, and in many ways have especially when we're talking about these big problems, they have multiple solutions, right? There isn't just one way to fix them. Surab, public problems, a lot of people have language barriers. It's hard for people to get the support they should be getting. Great. So if we're thinking about access based on language, there's a public problem in our society that too many people can't get their needs met, can't get the information they need, and can't communicate because of language barriers. I think that's a great example of a public program. Awesome. Thanks you all for sharing. So, the next question is, can public problems be solved? And the reality is that kind of no, right? I mean, in a sense, they're sort of never solved. In a sense, they're like dishes in the sink, in that they keep coming, and sometimes they're so big that they keep reproducing themselves in ways. So it's constant work that needs to be doing, and it's not about we're going to solve this, wrap it up in a pretty gift bow and send it away, right? There's no magic bullets. There's no simple solutions to public problems. And so solutions need to be satisficing. And this is a blend of the word satisfy and suffice to mean that you're aiming for satisfactory or adequacy rather than optimal solutions. That the truth is that sometimes you have to come up with something that's like good enough, satisficing, rather than the best solution, and this is just simply due to how complicated public problems are. And because they involve so many different constituents, and because it's difficult to agree on sort of what the solutions are. So any questions so far about this? I think you all gave great examples that you understand what a public problem is, and do you understand this point about that they kind of aren't necessarily ever solved? Makes sense? So when it comes to trying to address or trying to solve parts or aspects of public problems, or trying to get to solving issues related to public problems, what we're going to talk about primarily today is that the first step is often overlooked, and that is that we need to define what the problem is. And so even though you all gave some good examples of public problems, and we were able to connect connect problems to your missions and your organizations, the truth is that we have to get into a much finer, a much more specific definition of what the problem is if we want to address it. And so we're going to watch a video that talks about why problem definition matters specifically. And this is Beth Simone Novak, and she's a professor of technology, culture, and society at New York University. She's the Chief Innovation Officer of the state of New Jersey. And she has a book called Solving Public Problems, as well as directs an organization called the Gov Lab. And this is most of the curriculum that I'm using with you today comes from the Gov Lab, and you'll see links to these resources. They're really great free resources that you can access at any time, including some online courses, worksheets, books, materials that you can share out, videos. And so I'm going to introduce you to these concepts and ideas, but then I'll leave you with point you towards these resources at the end so that you can go dig deeper into them yourselves. But here's a video of Beth talking about why problem definition matters. So if we know we have a public program, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that all day. If we know we have a public problem, we need to start with a definition. Why? Why does that matter? So we'll watch this.
Welcome. In this module, we start working together to learn the art and science of problem definition, the first and most essential skill of the effective public problem solver. Albert Einstein famously said, if I had 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes on finding the solution. Although it seems obvious, most of us, if we're honest, aren't very rigorous about defining the problem we're trying to solve. Instead, we prefer to jump to the solution, the nonprofit, the app, the grant, the policy, whatever it is that we're proposing, and to start lobbying for its implementation. We want to jump right ahead to doing stuff. But when we fail to define the problem adequately, we can end up pursuing solutions that, no matter how innovative, simply do not work and fail to address the root cause of the problem. In contrast, good problem definition helps us to be clear about our ultimate goals. It enables us to identify actionable and specific opportunities where progress can be made within a larger, seemingly intractable issue. And when undertaken collaboratively with stakeholders and partners, that collaboration allows us to create an even more compelling statement of what we're trying to accomplish. This short introduction to problem definition will enable you to understand why problem definition matters, and I hope describe and apply a participatory process for defining the problem to your own project. Let's dive in with an example. Recently, a government official I know was developing an innovative program to reduce school absences in her city. Her plan was to send text messages to parents to remind them that school attendance was mandatory. She was excited about instituting this new and much cheaper approach for nudging people to change how they act, in the hope that it would be more effective at combating truancy than simply legislating required attendance by itself. But the text messaging solution assumed that the problem was parental behavior. She believed, as she put it, that parents were taking their kids to Disneyland on vacation during the school year to get a discount. Yet there was no evidence to suggest that going on vacation was the root cause of the problem. In fact, lagging school attendance is just as likely to be caused by a lack of transportation, to take one example. If that were the case, then the text messaging solution would not solve a problem of attendance. In fact, the real causes of truancy in this case were related in some cases to kids feeling bullied at school and not wanting to go. In other cases, to parental neglect and inattention, and in a few cases to a lack of safe transportation alternatives from home to school. As a result, the text messaging solution did not solve the problem of attendance. In any case, my friend never got her idea off the ground, having failed to convince anyone to do the project because she did not define the right root causes. As she looked at the data and talked to schools, teachers, and parents, collaboration would have helped her understand the true problem rather than making assumptions. Take a contrasting example. In 2020, a team at Innovation for Indonesia's School Children, Inovasi, set out to tackle the fact that early grade teachers are having difficulties in assessing students' learning progress in literacy. The problem is urgent. In places like East Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia's southernmost province, only 19% of students grades 1 to 3 could pass a basic literacy test. The so-called experts assumed the problem was bad teaching, in which case training would be the natural and best solution. However, after patiently investigating the problem, listening to those involved, examining data, and approaching the challenge with an open mind, they found that budget allocation was actually the more proximate cause. The slow process of problem definition, as they explain, and I quote here, lit a candle for us in a very dark place, the team writes. They were able to uncover that best performing districts allocate more toward library development, book acquisition, and extracurricular activities, whereas worst performing districts spend more on teacher salary and school management, illuminating a pathway to more effective change. To take an example closer to home, during the coronavirus epidemic outbreak in spring 2020, rather than just start handing out loans, the Economic Development Authority in New Jersey sent out a questionnaire and heard from over 500 small and medium-sized businesses about the impacts of the pandemic and the kinds of support people actually needed and wanted. Thus, when they released their first grant program, it was tailor-made to respond to real jobs. Sadly, it also meant that EDA got 10,000 applications in the first 76 minutes of the program. A century ago, John Dewey wrote that defining a problem by defining its root causes is the most important step in developing a good solution. One cannot brainstorm for the best solutions until one has identified as concretely as possible the real problem. A felt difficulty, Dewey explained, must be translated into a clear, specific, and accurate statement of that which needs to be solved. In How We Think, Dewey argued that narrowing an issue down to a solvable problem reflects the essence of how complex thought develops. Dewey was not alone in how he championed the importance of problem definition. Again, Einstein wrote that, and I quote here, "The formulation of a problem is often more essential than its solution, which may merely be a matter of mathematical or experimental skill. To raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard old problems from a new angle requires creative imagination and marks real advance in science." Sociologist Robert Merton defined a problem as a discrepancy between what is and what ought to be. Hence the need for a process of problem definition that bridges the difference between the current and the future state. Unmasking a problem, just as a sculptor reveals the statue from within the hunk of marble, distinguishes the work public problem solvers need to do. Thus, and this is another way of describing a public problem, the innovator is engaged in a process of defining and discovering a problem, rather than working on a problem that someone else has already presented to her. The key takeaway here, when we start with an incorrect definition of problem, no project, no matter how innovative the solution we want to pursue, will be likely to succeed. Next time, we'll take up with our next module the question of.
I'm going to pause the share here for a second and ask you all just to reflect on comments or observations after hearing that, any of your own experiences with either successfully defining a problem or not successfully defining a problem. And you're welcome to put in the chat or if you want to raise your hand, speak up, either way. Just looking for thoughts on thoughts that came up as you watched the video. Yeah, Sharon.
I can say like I can define or measure the result or the end of a project based on how it begins, like what I have in the beginning as genesis or foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right that being able to sort of to define something well in the first place is a really key to being able to kind of measure whether or not it was successful in the end. That's a key component of evaluation for sure. I agree with you. And I think, all of you are probably to some measure engaged in, the one of the challenges of working for an organization that already has a mission and that already has a strategic plan and it already has sort of an idea of what the problem is that you're often sort of funneled into solving the problem that the organization thinks you have. And so this is one of the points that I want to make sure is sort of clear there, is this is also suggesting that in and of itself can get in the way of you sort of being able to solve some of the problems that you all are dealing with in your organizations, is that for, once someone sort of imposes even the idea of like, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit to address this thing, it may or may not be that mission may or may not be addressing the actual problem. And so, and again, keeping in mind that we're talking about public problems as complex, it's not that quite that cut and dry, but certainly, wanting to challenge all of you to think a little bit about, are you, how often in your work are you sort of presupposing what the problem is, or and the quote that she gave, that this sort of idea of felt difficulty, which I think is super important. Like we know what problems are because we've either experienced them or we're working with our clients who've experienced them. But oftentimes we still sort of skip that step of really defining what the root is or what the source of that problem is, because we think we know what it is, or the organization's telling us that they know what it is. And so keep that in mind as we move forward in this process today, because really what we're doing here today together is we're going to define the problem. We're going to do, this, she's just explained to us why you need to define the problem. So what we'll do going forward is I'm going to show you how to do that. So just a reminder to everyone that this is a practice session here today, that all we're really doing, all I'm trying to do here with you is show you the tools that you can use, that you can take back to your organization and work with in community with others in a step-by-step way to accomplish this. So we're not actually going to define your problems or the problems that you're working on today. We're going to practice. And part of why it's important for me to say that is that one of the key components of problem definition is working in collaboration with others. And so you're going to collaborate with each other today, but obviously you're not working in the same organizations. You might be dealing with different public problems. And so when we talk about these steps, these exercises that I'm going to walk you through, the more people that you can have involved, the more sort of constituents that you can involve in that process. So your service providers, your staff, your clients, your community members, the closer you can get to better defining the problem, because you have different eyes on it and different experiences sort of informing what you're doing. So again, just a reminder, today we're practicing, but I'm going to give you some tools to walk away with. And the hope would be that you can find some resources, mainly in the form of time, to kind of work through some of this with other folks involved in your community and your organization. So we're going to do 4 steps today to work towards our problem definition. And that is, you're going to work alone to articulate the problem. We'll work together to articulate the problem together, which is a second step. We'll identify root causes, and we'll apply this tool called the lasso to the problems that you identify and the root causes that you identify. I've got I'm going to have slides that detail each step of each exercise that we go through, but the worksheets that I sent to you have a little bit more detail and a little bit more information on them. And so it might just be helpful to you to follow along with the worksheets as we go through each step. So again, just a reminder to pull those out, or if you didn't get one for some reason, let me know. Again, a lot of the information will be on the slides, but it'll help you to have those. But more importantly, too, the worksheets you can take back to work with you and use them at a later date. So I'm doing a time check right now. I think let's go ahead. We're actually moving a little bit faster than I thought we would. So I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and take a 10-minute break and come back, and then we'll go through the 4 exercises. So I've got 3:38. So come back here at 3:48. You can just turn off your camera and mute yourself. We'll see you back in 10 minutes. Hello, hello. Just I lost y'all somehow. Let me try that again. Okay. Hello, hello. Is everyone back? All right. Welcome back.
Hello.
Nice to see you back. I hope I'm not disappearing too much into the ether here. This also reminds me of teaching online last year, where it started to get darker and darker as the quarter went on. And my office started to get darker and darker, and I worked on my lighting a little bit, so hopefully y'all can see me okay. Okay, so we're back in action here. We're going to talk about we're going to go through these 4 exercises together to think about problem solving that you all might be engaging in. And so the first step that we're going to do is to articulate the problem. And I'm going to ask you to work on this alone for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to give you an example here before we get started, and point out a couple key things that I want you to think about. So first of all, in terms of articulating the problem, so what problem? So for you all, you get to decide. You all gave some good examples of public problems when we defined it a few minutes ago, and you were thinking about it. But I'm going to urge you to get more specific. I'm going to urge you to think about your work directly. So the work that you're doing with your organizations, and that, that may be really specific in terms of your role with the organization, or something that is a really particular problem that your organization, a public problem that your organization is dealing with. So again, remembering that you're talking about an economic, political, or social problem that affects a lot of people, that's complex, doesn't have just one solution. So we kind of, within the work that you do, what are some of the public problems that you deal with? And so you get to choose sort of what you're going to take a deep dive in on today, but only you know what that is. So you'll have to think about it. And so a couple tips. You're just going to brainstorm. And I think whatever works for you, it works to kind of write a paragraph, write it down, take some notes, do some bullet points. But I want you to come up with, what is the problem that you're looking at? When and where does it occur? And who is impacted by the problem? And so the example, if we sort of stick with this current moment right now, where Seattle Public Schools shut down because of a teacher and staff shortage. So the problem is this shortage of public school teachers and staff. It's happening now in the fall of 2021 in the Seattle public school system. And it's affecting students, parents, teachers, staff, administrators. Like that's what I want you to think about. There's a couple tips, and if you look at the worksheets that I handed out to you, one of the tips is that to take care that the problem you identify is not a solution in disguise, right? So is it a problem, or is it a solution to a problem. So the example they gave is like, my organization doesn't have a good website. That's not a public problem, right? That's a solution to sort of addressing maybe some of the problems you're having in your organization. But so pay attention that you actually have a problem. And then the other thing is to not be overly vague. So for example, when you say who is impacted, the public is too vague. That's too broad of a community that's impacted. So try to be as specific as you can be about geography, so the location, the time that it's affecting people, the demographics, who it's affecting, the industry that it affects, and then to not be overly complex. You want to come up with a problem that anybody could understand, so that you could talk to your city council person, they would know what you were talking about. You could tell me, I would know what you're talking about. So you don't want to have anything that's too complex in terms of jargon, technical terms, that sort of thing. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to work alone to decide what is the problem, when and where does it occur, and who is impacted. And again, sort of go back to those tips to make sure that you're on the right path in terms of that you're looking at a public problem. So can I answer any questions? Does everyone understand what I'm asking you to do? Okay, and I'll just set a timer for 5 minutes. So go ahead and brainstorm your answers to this, and then we'll come back and I'll have you work together on the same questions. So 5 minutes. Just a reminder, if you have questions as you're doing this, you can drop them in the chat. You can also just unmute yourself and ask. So it's been about 5 minutes. If you need more time, tell me in the chat or tell me off mute. Super. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to do, and because, let's see, how many people do we have? I've got 1, 2, 3. So I think it'll be nice to actually do this in breakout rooms. So I'm going to put you, I'm just going to pair you up. So we'll do 2 breakout rooms with 2 people in each room. And let me tell you what you're going to do next. It's pretty much the same thing, but you're going to articulate the problem together. So again, ideally, when you're doing this in your organization, then this is what's meant by sort of collaborating with others, that you're bringing other people in on the conversation from as many different constituencies as possible, so that you're getting as many different eyes and different experiences on the matter as possible. But you'll just do this together. You obviously will have different problems, but there may be some crossover. We'll just see what happens. But basically, you're going to go through these sort of same three questions again with your partner. And so what I'm asking you to do is share your problem with the other person in your group as a brainstorming tool. So I want you to communicate the 3 points to them that you articulated in exercise 1. So what is the problem? Who is it affecting, and when and where does it happen? And then once you've done that, sort of let them ask you questions, ask them, let them sort of react to what you've described. Maybe they have other thoughts about a problem, maybe they have feedback, so you can just sort of, discuss it. And there's a tip here to try retelling the problem as a story. Again, this is very much up to you in terms of sort of what you're comfortable with, but I wanted to give you an example of what that might look like. So again, if we're sticking with this same idea of the Seattle Public Schools, so retelling your problem as a story might be to talk about, how does the problem surface for a client, for example? And so if I use my Seattle Public Schools example, I would say, I'm a mother of 2 young children in 2nd and 4th grade. I work as an administrative assistant in an accountant's office. I just learned that in addition to no school today for Veterans Day, school is now canceled tomorrow. I have Veterans Day off, but I don't have tomorrow off. I have no idea what I'm going to do about my kids on such short notice. And this, we're just coming out of this pandemic of having to care for my kids, and I've been, missing work, and this is really disruptive to me, right? So that's just another way, like, because you're communicating, it's a creative way to think about how can you sort of communicate what the problem is. So you don't have to do that if that's not in your comfort zone or if that doesn't make sense to you, but it's just one way that you could sort of share with your partner what the problem is that you're talking about. But at the least, what I'm asking you to do is to share with them this, what is the problem, when and where does it occur, and who is impacted. And so I'm also going to ask you, so you'll be in pairs, I'm going to ask you to do 5 minutes for the first person to share, and then take a couple minutes to respond, and then stop and switch, and we'll do 5 minutes with the other person sharing and with some feedback, so that way everybody, both of you sort of get some undivided attention to your problem or your example. Does everyone understand what I'm asking you to do? And I'm just going to look, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. And let me just look, I'm going to see if there's any particular pairing that makes sense. I don't think it's going to matter. So Lynn, would you mind putting I'll let Lynn decide, just create 2 pairs, and we'll send you into breakout rooms. And then once you're in there, I'll share this slide again so that you can see it. But again, it should be on your worksheet as well. Any questions before we send you off? I don't believe that they are, Chloe. I don't believe that breakout rooms are recorded. Good question.
No, they won't be.
Thanks, Lynn. And remember that just decide who's going to go first and take 5 minutes, and I will give you a 5 minute, I'll send you a message, 5 minutes up, discuss for a couple minutes, and then switch to the other person. So I'll keep track of that. Just watch you. I'll send you a message into the breakout room. And if you need, you can leave if you need help, or you can also chat, drop questions in the chat if you need help. And I might pop in and say hi and just make sure you don't have any questions. All right, so I think you're all invited to join. Perfect. Yay. So I would love to hear from you how that went. And, anybody you can just volunteer to share out, but I'd love to hear sort of, were you able to identify a problem? What was your problem? And did you get some good feedback? Tell me how it went. Who'd like to go first? Sharon, I'm going to pick on you because you've got your camera on. So yeah, I'm just going to make you go first. Do you mind?
No, of course not. I was in a group with Chloe.
Okay.
So we had a very good discussion, I can say. And I came up with a problem as the information on the vaccination and the mandate as a home visitor. And it was like how it like as a public problem where it affects different people, it affects different people. It's happening now and affects communities, staff, all together, and it affects the economy, it affects the social and the interaction of people and all of that. And also we discussed, she asked a question and we kind of went in discussion back and forth on the possibilities of how to look at the problem at the client stand view, how the, as a staff, as a client, as a state, for example. Right. And Chloe brought a problem like a mental health as a public problem now, as in home visiting, which is it affects a lot of staff at this moment, especially with the pandemic. And we went also back and forth talking about how there's different layers to the problem, now even with the mandates to get vaccinated, it's one problem which I identify as the problem. It's not solved yet, but yet also as a mental health problem in the staff.
Okay.
Like if people are mandated, they got vaccinated, they have to go back in person home visiting, and how I still at that level we still don't have solution, like because staff are affected, they are scared, families are affected and they're scared, but at the same time there is fear to lose jobs, some things like that. So in that sense, that's what we discussed about.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. And I'm looking at the time. What I'd like to do is to hear, could someone from the other group, would either of you from the other group want to share also?
Yeah, so we talked about, the problem that our organization has is that we're trying to provide access to the services and grants to immigrant families who have problem with languages, they have language barriers.
Okay.
So it occurs in almost everywhere in the United States, I think. And the children are usually the most affected because they could be getting more economic stable.
Okay.
When they have grants, and they could be focusing more on their studies if they're economically stable.
Okay. Okay, good. And Saurabh, the only thing I would say is that you're correct that it's a problem everywhere, but for sort of your intentions and your organization to be more specific about where the community that you're working in. So whether, and I don't know what that is, but if that's King County or Seattle or Washington, to try and be a little bit more specific. Because also hopefully if you were able to sort of come up with some solutions, those might be solutions that people could use in other places, but knowing too that every geographical location is a little bit unique. So just focus down a little bit more on that.
Okay, thank you.
Chloe, do you feel like sharing what your problem was? You don't have to if you don't want to.
That's okay. I think Sharon touched on it, just about like kind of navigating and supporting the mental health of staff in home visiting right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Appreciated being in her room.
Great. And then Sophia, do you want to share?
Sure. I was sharing that we have a cohort-based model for our clients in one of our programs, and we were having issues with we order supplies for them online, and the quantity limitation. And one way of trying to bypass that was trying to do an individual transaction, like maybe today, and then trying again sometime during the week. And unfortunately, even that didn't work. I think there's a cap.
Okay.
And so that put us in a predicament because we are short about 12 clients. And because it's a cohort system, we are trying to keep a level of equity in place. So whatever we gave to the previous cohorts, we're trying to also give to our current cohort.
Okay.
And so we were just like in the discussion, just trying to figure out a way, how do we keep that lens of equity in place? How do we bypass this problem and get the needed supplies to our clients?
Okay.
And the option would be to look at one option would be to communicate with the supplier directly to see what's going on. We do understand because of the pandemic, there is supply chain shortages happening, and this could be a direct result of that.
Okay.
Another possibility is to try and look at a similar product. It could be a different price, could have different features. It won't be the same, but because of the issue that we're experiencing, that might be the only option in ensuring that we get what we need.
Okay. Okay. And so with Sophia's example too, and y'all will see in the next stage kind of how this plays out. And Lynn and I were just having a similar conversation about this too. So one thing to sort of ask yourself, and I'm going to share, let me share my screen. So if we go back to this first exercise of articulating, or I'm sorry, go back to, we're gonna go back even further to this definition of a public problem, is to think about what you might be having, sort of thinking about the difference between a public problem, which is this big, complex economic, political, social problem with large impacts, that's deeply political, not universally agreed upon in terms of how to solve it. So, and Sophia, I hear you talking about there's larger issue of equity, which is definitely a public problem, but then you have this specific sort of supply chain problem going on, which may not be a public problem. And so, but I'm not going to determine that yet. I don't want to say that is or isn't, but as you all go into the next stage of these exercises, remember to kind of ask yourself, is the problem that I'm starting with one of these wicked problems, this complex economic, political, social problem? And the reason being that when you come back to this idea of getting into the root causes, or sort of the reason you have to define the problem in the first place is that you don't want to jump ahead. And so if I'm just using Sophia's as an example. I clearly don't have the information that you have, Sophia. So I'm just going to kind of spitball using yours as an example. If you know you have this immediate supply chain problem and you get focused on that, then does that keep you from looking at the bigger picture, overarching sort of public problem that's really driving the impact on your community? And so I want y'all to keep thinking about that. And Lynn and I had a conversation, because Lynn was asking this too, around sort of salaries and home visitors, and how do you deal with sort of fairness of salary and keeping people employed? And I was like, that may be getting too specific, might be like jumping the gun a little bit in terms of determining what's the bigger public problem that's kind of pushing down on your organization and causing these other solutions to sort of not work, or your sort of approaches to not work. And so I say all that to you because when you get to your next exercise, and this is really important, because what will happen with the root cause analysis, which is where we're going next, is you'll start to see whether or not what you'll either start getting below your problem into the root causes, or you might realize, I may have jumped ahead and I need to back up and redefine my sort of starting problem. And so I'm not sure, and I'm happy to clarify or ask questions, but it may just take you getting into the root cause analysis for that to make sense. But any kind of questions or comments about that? Or can I clarify? So let's play with this a little bit and see where it goes next. So this third step is to identify the root causes of your public problem. So the root cause analysis is just it's a careful approach to identifying and articulating the underlying causes of a problem. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and I will give you some examples, you're going to make a list of 5 whys as to why the problem is happening. And so you start with 5 whys and you say, these are five reasons I think this problem is happening. And then you go underneath each one of those 5 and ask 5 whys for why that's happening, right? So you're 5 whys, and then you're layering 5 whys under that to sort of get at what's happening. And let me show you an example of what that looks like. So in your worksheet, I gave you a couple templates that you can play with. You can use either of these, or you can do your own thing, whatever you're comfortable with. Really, at this point, again, I just want you to brainstorm. So however you can scratch this out on a piece of paper, or sort of think about it, whatever works for you. But you start with, in this particular model, you would put your problem that you just identified here. And then if you use this template, and this is called a fishbone, as you start to ask 5 whys, you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so thinking about trying to come up with 5 reasons that you can't, that you do have this problem. And the fishbone breaks it down into context, resources, competency, and organizations. But let me show you the next one that I think is a little bit easier for the context of what we're doing today. And you have both examples in your worksheets. This is just a simpler version where you have your problem statement that you already just came up with. And then you ask yourself, okay, why is that happening? Okay, but why is that happening? Okay, why is that happening? So you're digging below each why and asking why is that? Why is that? And then if you have time, ideally, if you can get to 5, that's what I'm asking you to do. But then I'm asking you potentially to ask 5 whys for every why that you came up with. So you just keep, and of course there is a point where you're going to stop. There's a point where you may not get that deep into the layers, but you're going to try. And I think what's important is that if you are stuck, it may be because you've maybe, that you've failed to identify that there aren't any more causes, you can't find the cause, or maybe you just need more information, and that's okay too. And if that's what you realize is like, I don't think I know, I don't have enough information to come up with the 5 whys. That's great, because now you know that that's something you have to go explore more and sort of try to figure out more what's going on. So don't let that frustrate you. But I do want to push you all to think a little bit that if your problem is if your problem is sort of a solution, or if your problem isn't a public problem, if it's not that sort of complex problem, you might also run into a little bit of trouble with the root causes exercise. So we're going to give it a try, and I'm going to have you in this case, we're just going to work again alone, just quietly. So you can turn your cameras off and you mute yourselves, and take your problem that you identified and ask yourself, come up with 5 whys as to why that problem is happening. And then if you come up with those 5, you can spoke off of each of those with, another 5 if you can. So just go as deep as you can. So does that make sense, what I'm asking you to do? And let me, I should have slowed down a little bit to go back. So let's look at this example. The problem is that children in our community are not ready for kindergarten. Why aren't they ready for kindergarten? Well, not all children in the community are going to high quality preschool. Okay, well, why aren't they going to high quality preschool? Because there's not enough high quality preschools in our community. Well, why aren't there enough high quality preschools in the community? Preschool staff need additional training and education to provide high quality preschool education. Why don't we have that? Well, professional development opportunities are not available for preschool staff. And then you get down to this root cause, that is the community college doesn't offer training and professional development opportunities for staff. So that's the example of like, keep asking yourself why, and try to go underneath until you think you've gotten to the root. And that's what you're trying to get at, is that the bottom of that sort of ladder down. So I'm going to again give you about 10 minutes to do this as a brainstorming activity with your problem, and just by yourselves. But again, I want to emphasize, if you get stuck, let me know, and we can talk through it a little bit and brainstorm a little bit. And don't get frustrated. If you need to ask some questions or we need to talk through it a bit, we'll do it, and that'll be helpful. That'll help other folks too. Or if you just need the quiet, you can just mute your computer and you don't have to. You can just do your thing. So does that make sense, what we're doing? Okay. So I'll start my timer. And I'm going to mute myself and turn my camera. The next step is to apply this LASSO model, and it's an acronym. And this helps you to eliminate problems that are too big or too far outside your jurisdiction to be subject to your impact. And so the first one I think about is whoever said the pandemic, right? So the first question is, have I limited the scope? That's the L. So if your answer was the pandemic, you are way out of scope, because that's something that you can't fix. That's something your organization can't fix. And so it's okay that you came to that, but that also gives you some information about how do I need to come up with something that's doable. So the second is the A. The second A of the LASSO, is it capable of being acted on? So was your root cause something that you can have an impact on? And I was going to think, like, inadequate language assistance, that does seem like something that an organization in King County, with the right resources, could have an impact on. Then the next S, or the next letter S, is it something specific? And so I think difference in values and beliefs, economic pressure, those are great, and are getting down to root causes, but maybe need to be sussed out to be a little bit more specific, so that you can limit the scope and that they're capable of being acted on. And so again, just thinking about, like, what might that look like. The fourth point in the LASSO acronym is will it be supported? So this is where it's sort of like, okay, in reality, within the confines of your organization, the resources that you have, is this, if you said, hey, we need to address the differences in values and beliefs in order to solve this problem that we're having, will the organization support that in terms of resources, in terms of staff, in terms of mission? You ask that question. And then finally, kind of who is the problem owner? And that really, all that means is, is there a person within the organization who can take charge and kind of go into the next steps with the problem? And so as you can see here, what the work you all did was really productive in coming down to this root cause, but then you got to do this step of like, okay, you got to rein it in, you got to lasso it in to make it something that you can actually have an impact on. But now that you have these root causes and you're thinking about those things, that makes that more possible for you to say, okay, and you can even go back and look at your root causes. And maybe there's other sort of points in that template that you can think of that are limited in scope, capable of being acted on, something that you can support. And so we're not going to go through, and I will open up for questions. Give me one sec. We're not going to go through the steps 5 and 6, but I just want you to know that they're there. If, when and if you do this as a team, that you would also go into these steps 5 and 6. And they're important primarily because at step 5, you really need to sort of test your root cause out and ask yourself, is this really happening? And collect some data, maybe really sort of make sure that it is in fact the problem that the root cause that you think it is. And then there's also always this important sort of point about reframing the problem. And they suggest that you shift perspective and look at the problem from someone else's point of view. And really the point of this is that the problem may not be what the solution may be very different than what you think it is. And the example that I've heard for this kind of reframing the problem has to do with slow elevators in a building, and people are complaining because the elevators are slow and they're tired of waiting for the elevators. So the building manager calls in an elevator repair person, and the elevator repair person says, oh sure, we can make them go faster, but it's going to cost you $300,000 and it's going to take us 6 months to do it, and blah blah blah. Then the building manager calls in a psychologist, and the psychologist says, oh, all you need to do is just hang some mirrors up outside the elevators. People are just bored. And if they have something else to do, they won't complain that the elevators are slow. And so that's reframing, is that sometimes you think, we get really, especially in our fields of work, we get really stuck that we know what the problem is and we know what the solution is. And it gets hard for us to see outside of that. So these steps, I just wanted you to sort of see how you would go through that whole process in terms of a team and in terms of working with other folks. And I think I hope the other sort of thing that is clear to you now that we've sort of practiced this and played with this a little bit today is how much more progress you would make doing this with your team, right? That this process we've gone through today, when you're just doing it by yourself in this short period of time we have to practice with it, that if you can really see what would happen if people from different constituencies with different information came together and went through this exercise that we're all concentrated on your problem, that you would have, it would, that I hope it's clear to you that would be productive. So I see something in the chat, and I also just want to open up for questions, and I do have some resources to share with you. So Lynn, thanks Lynn. Lynn dropped the evaluation in the chat. We do like to evaluate our webinars to make sure that they're helpful to you. So before you sign off today, if you would click on the link to evaluate. And I will share some resources with you before I sign off, but I just want to open it up to questions and see what questions do you have, having kind of gone through this practice session.
For me, I think when you have like a problem, right? Whatever you define as a public problem, for me, the sequence in or the order in which I have to ask the question why. So I find I can ask the first question why. Whatever is gonna come up, it can be, I don't know how to go like from 5, 4, 3, 2 to 1. Which one is more important? Because it can pop up like this is why, but
Yeah.
then that why cannot be in order. The first why and the second why.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that in some ways you have to sort of be open to seeing what comes out of those, that exercise. But is it helpful for you to think about the lassoing that obviously there's some whys that you're just not going to be able to address because they're too big? Yeah. And not knowing, and again, I think that idea of that you may not have enough information, which again, I think is sometimes in the work that we do, we think we understand really well what we're dealing with problem-wise, but it's like, oh, maybe I need to ask some more people, or I need to collect some more data on this and sort of figure out if I know, maybe I don't know enough about what I'm looking at. I don't know if is that helpful?
Yeah. But also I think, like, for example, like, because this is like an exercise we're doing, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the scope in which I work every day to have all the data with me.
Sure.
It can be, you see, as a home visitor, I can see what comes between communities and maybe me as a staff or the office, but it's not like something I work with every day to find out what is the problem, to have all the information to, know.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to do more research to be able to have all the data in place for you to get the right.
Yeah. And that, I do think that is a part of the step. And I certainly think if you want to approach this process as an organization, you need to like, make it happen in terms of setting aside the time, doing the work together as a group. It really has to become an initiative of your organization. So I just shared with you on the screen is the website, the solvingpublicproblems.org. I linked to there's 2 websites on the worksheets I gave you, but it's really, both of the organizations I linked to on the worksheets provide free online training, and most of it is just asynchronous online. I mean, I think they may have live courses that you can pay for, but they both have free asynchronous online courses and pamphlets and trainings. And so you can, and I say that because you could get together a group of employees, a group of people at your organization, go through the training and work together to actually do the process. And I would just suggest that then you could decide together, okay, what is the problem we want to work on together, and then go through, so you'd go through the problem defining process together, and then you go through the root cause analysis process together. So that I just want to make sure that you all know that resource is there, and that's what they offer. And you'll recognize some of the material I used here today. So, but absolutely, this isn't something you would just go back and do by yourself. You certainly would have to sort of initiate a project at your organization. Any other questions or comments I can answer? And by all means, if you need to sign off, I know we're at 5 o'clock, so please, thank you so much for showing up. It was nice to have you, but I will hang here if you have questions. And here is my email too, if anyone wants to shoot me an email, but definitely check out the links that are on the worksheets. There's just a ton of information there. Thanks, Chloe. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
Rob, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna fill out the form, the evaluation.
Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Sure, thanks.
All right. Sharon, I'm going to close the window. Did you get the link?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Okay.
We'll see you
Have
next
a
time,
nice
Lynn.
weekend.
Thank you very much. Do you need anything from me?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I think we're good. I should stop
Okay.
recording.
Thank you so much.